I watched The Sound of Music as a kid, for sure.
I've seen the movie several times. It was one of my favorites growing up.
I've been in theater for so long, but had never seen Sound of Music, the movie, the musical, never listened to the music until I finally got here.
Oh, I grew up on Julie Andrews. Always. That was one of the few movies we had taped off TV.
Just putting like the lyrics into my daily life as someone who loves musicals does.
I saw the movie a lot of times because my mom loves it.
My friend had the DVD of like the movie with Julie Andrews, and my mom and I went over to their house and stole the DVD from them and took it back to my house.
My granddad, it's one of his favorite movies.
And as someone whose name is Maria, I watched that movie and was like, oh, this is what I'm supposed to be as a Maria.
I grew up with thinking that it was a Christmas movie.
When I was little, every Christmas season in Korea, they televised Sound of Music. And the very funny thing is they're spoken in Korean, but they sing in English.
And so I would watch it with my cousin while the adults were like eating dinner upstairs, that kind of thing.
I think it was during a Christmas concert, just kind of thinking about like, that would be really fun to do in this space with some of these people. And we had been talking about doing a big musical again.
Prof. Slav emailed me about doing a show and making it a big one. And we wanted something that had big community involvement and a really big pull, and we kind of settled on The Sound of Music.
I got either made a call or finally got called back and was like, okay, we're doing this. We're gonna be able to do The Sound of Music.
For every set that I design, the first thing you have to do is start with a script. So then you sort of have to look at the show and say, okay, this is in a perfect world, in my perfect space, in the world where I have all of the money that I could ever want to work on this show, this is what I would do. And then you say, okay, this is my actual space, this is my actual budget, what can I do?
So the basic idea was we would have a large panorama of the Alps on stage all the time behind all the action, and then different pieces of different scenic units would come in front to denote different places. So we had a certain type of arch planned for the Abbey spaces, and then these two-sided wall flats with windows in them for the interior and exterior of the villa. And then we had a style to be on stage to kind of give a sense of place to Maria for Sound of Music for that number. Maria's bedroom was the other set. So luckily, Courtney has a lot of experience sewing drapes and things like that. So she was able to get the fabric and make both the drapes very professionally, and then also have you guys all make the curtain clothes out of the same fabric.
I think the hardest thing about being the scenic designer for this show was just the challenge of working in the chapel and trying to make everything fit, wanting to make sure that we created the world in such a way that it would be helpful for the audience, really magical and wonderful, but also can we just get all of it to fit on the stage and not take 20 years to have our stage hands move it around.
Really enjoyed designing the backdrop for the show. It was a long process. It started over our winter break, and it was a lot of back and forth between me and Professor Upton and Professor Slavsky, conferring about mountain shapes and hill shapes and colors and clouds and such. So yeah, that was really fun. And
a lot of the things we were building were so tall, like the background that was going to have like the landscape and the scenery on it
really tall. I don't remember the exact measurements, but
I knew in my head that it was going to be 15 feet tall and 36 feet wide, but I didn't really understand how big that was until we started building the frames.
I mentioned Amy Sue and how much she does, and very, very appreciative of her, not just for what she does, but also for her energy. She brings a lot of positive energy to the to rehearsals.
In order to build it, I have to see it, and I have to have like a vision to follow and somebody to bounce ideas off of. So yeah, she was a great resource in terms of coming up with like what she wanted to see, and then being straight with me if it was working or what wasn't working, which I appreciate.
Annie and I were kind of, we would do things involving the drill. Catherine and Elena did a lot of the cutting, the wood cutting. Once I got my hands on the woodcutter though, it's a very therapeutic thing to do as long as you're safe about it. Obviously Casey was the overseer, just making sure everything we were doing was the correct measurements, and then we all kind of got into the painting.
I think the most exciting and nerve-wracking part is probably auditions. So who's going to show up? Are the people we need going to come? You know, is anyone going to come?
I was going to another school when it was announced that Covenant would be doing The Sound of Music, and I was planning to transfer in the coming semester. And then I think Dr. Taheri had reached out to me about it. He had encouraged me to go ahead and try out and just see what happened and, you know, leave it in the Lord's hands.
I decided to audition because I love musicals, and we don't do a lot of musicals here, so I wanted to take every possible opportunity to do a musical that I could.
I was already auditioning before I even knew what musical it was.
When I heard that Covenant was going to be putting it on, I was like, oh, cool. And then Mom asked me if I wanted to try it, and I was like, sure.
I thought it'd be really cool, since I'd worked for the theater department for a year and a half at that point, to actually be in one of the shows I was helping work with.
The director approached me early on and asked me if I'd be willing to stage manage the production. And I, of course, really wanted to do that because I liked working with this director. And so I was really excited about that, but I still wanted to audition for it because I don't have a lot of auditioning experience. So I auditioned, and then I left the audition thinking, I'm definitely the stage manager. That is exactly what I'm going to be doing.
It's just always an honor to be sitting in a room and have people come in and be willing to share their gifts.
I was sitting in the library doing homework, and I got your email that you'd casted us, and I mean, I didn't really know what to do with myself.
I got the email, I was like, oh my gosh, I got in! And I was running all around the house telling my parents and my siblings.
I was actually like at my apartment when I found out, and I just got out of the car and I was like walking towards my apartment, and I was like, oh my gosh, I got Liesl, and I like ran inside and told all my roommates. I was very excited when I found out.
Well, we start the play out singing the morning hymn with all the other nuns. We're not all present. We're waiting for a couple missing nuns.
Introduction was very cool because you had all the girls who were playing nuns just walking through, and I could just sense, oh wow, this would be so cool to be in the audience as all these people come around you.
But I really love getting to work the nuns chorus. Like, their music is just so gorgeous and it's so lush. And it's one of those things, it's really a feature moment for the chorus. And choruses don't often get those moments of just really beautiful music.
For every nun rehearsal, choir rehearsal,
Professor Tahiri would get us to sing in our Elmo voices, which is a fun way to kind of get us loosened up.
Yes, even more please. Be the Wicked Witch. All right.
I liked doing that. He's just a character. I love Professor Tahiri. He definitely made this process be fun and amazing.
A lot of the nuns' hymns were a cappella, so just staying in key. I think staying on pitch was hard.
Not bad. And I didn't even give you the pitch. So you guys are great. This is awesome. I recorded that one. Okay.
Some of them come in late, and then Maria never shows up, so that sets the tone for Where's Maria?
It's incredibly important to have a capable actress and singer to play Maria. And kind of going into auditions, I figured surely among these however many 40 girls or something that are auditioning, someone will come to the fore. That incredibly fell into place because Maria is just the things I was looking for in Maria. Like, she climbs a tree and scrapes her knee. Like, you need to believe that this person that they're singing this about would actually do something like that. And I think Caroline brings a lot of that quality to the role.
The hills are alive with the sound of music, with songs they have sung for 1,000 years. The hills.
My favorite scene is probably when Maria is on the mountainside singing The Sound of Music.
I did not realize the beauty of the song The Sound of Music itself until I had to sit and look at the words every single night. And I really love the line, to laugh like a brook when it trips and falls over stones in its way. I just really, that line just, it took a hold of my heart in a certain way.
To laugh like a brook when it trips and falls over stones on its way to sing.
And every night I would wait to hear that line. I would look up from my script and watch that line.
I go to the hills when my heart is lonely. I know I will hear what I've heard before. My heart will be blessed with the sound of music, and I'll sing once more.
So one thing that really resonated with me from the show is Maria kind of looking for a place to belong. She's trying desperately to find it like in the abbey with the nuns, but that's really not where it is, and she doesn't quite fit in there, and she knows that, and that's really hard for her.
From Sister Berta's perspective, she's kind of a tightly wound nun that's really anti-Maria and all of her behaviors.
Basically, for Sister Sophia, she kind of doesn't know what to think about Maria.
Sister Margareta was like kind of a mentor to Maria.
And so I think she kind of goes through the internal struggle of like, which side do I take? And then she's like, no, it's more important for me to be a peacemaker.
I mean, I really liked rehearsing the Maria song because it was fun getting to like kind of yell back and forth with the other characters. I really enjoyed that.
I remember that first rehearsal, like they were doing a good job, but you could tell it was new. You know, you're learning, but like I got to see that number performed then weeks later, and just seeing those girls really come into those fun characters. I don't know, they just brought so much personality over those weeks. So I remember that specifically, like, wow, like, these girls have really grown into these fun roles.
It's one of the opportunities we get to see very prim and proper, or people that we think should be very prim and proper, be real and authentic.
How do you solve a problem like Maria? How do you catch a cloud and pin it down? How do you find a word that means Maria? A flippity-tippity
So I decided to send her away. I have received a letter from somebody who needs a governess. So she doesn't want to go, and I have to be firm, and I feel like she maybe needs to try something different. So I push her out of the nest and sing a couple songs on the way. And off she goes.
When they're introducing, Frau Schmidt and Franz and I think the children as well, you first see them on stage and we're kind of interacting with them and kind of see like the household itself. That was always really fun.
Favorite line to react to was the one that Andrew said when he was insulting me or something, and I got to like snap at him with my towel. That was really fun.
So it starts out, he's the head of the family. He's the big, mean dad, at least in the eyes of the kids, because he's got this strict sort of discipline and rigor to him that he picked up in his time in the Navy.
For Frau Schmidt, she was someone who had been in this family's house for like years and years, and she'd seen the ups and downs of the Von Trapp family. She'd seen Mrs. Von Trapp and Captain Von Trapp's happiness, and then the collapse of that happiness and the loss of music. So she was very encouraged, but also concerned when Maria comes in.
From Maria's point of view, in the beginning of the show, she kind of has an idea of where her life is going. She's at the Abbey. She has chosen this life for herself, and then the rug kind of gets taken out from under her, and she's sent to this house to kind of be a mother and a nanny to these children. And you know, as she meets everyone in this new life of hers, it's just all very foreign, but she really kind of pulls herself up by her bootstraps and figures it out, of course, with help from the children and from the people in the house and by the grace of God.
When we first meet, I immediately break into talking about how she's going to be running the house and what I expect her to do, and how I want her to whistle essentially to get the kids' attention, and she sort of refuses.
My favorite line to speak was probably the one where I hand the captain back his whistle. It's kind of the first time I've met him, and it's just a very small, somewhat polite act of defiance, and maybe a little bit of assertion of, you know, I respect you, but I will be in charge of how these children learn, and you know, this is how I'm going to do it. So thank you.
I adored working with these children.
Mia, I played the role of Liesel.
My name is Roger, and I played Friedrich.
Hi, I'm Iris, and I play Louisa.
I am Nathan, and I play Kurt.
Hi, my name is Elike, and I played Brigitte.
My name is Karis, and I played Marta. Hi, my name is Lena, and I played Gretel.
You are so humbled working with kids in theater because so often they know your role so much better than you do. And this was exemplified when Lena, our smallest little cast member, would mouth our lines if we were a little late, like coming in for our line, or we were forgetting, or we'd forget lyrics. Like, she knew. and she was never like, oh, she would never be snooty about it, but she just did know, and we were kind of like, hey, Lena, remember, you know, let the big kids catch up. Don't give me any hints.
Especially little Gretel, as she sort of slowly opened up. She never opened up all the way, but the moments where I could put her on my shoulders and walk off at the end, those were triumphant moments for me.
That's nice. I think we need an adult here. Okay.
You guys are technically adults.
Look how cool you are now.
Oh, you need a mask. You need your mask.
I love doing shoulder rides, Lena.
Okay.
These kids were amazing. They were so well behaved and honestly listened a lot better than some of the other kids I've worked with in the past.
Roger specifically is such a mature, I guess he was 12, a mature 12-year-old, and I loved talking with him and working with him and seeing the way that he took responsibility on stage, managing the ones that were younger than him. And then watching how Mia just kind of came in and acted like she was one of them. Like, it was really hard to say, like, oh, no, Mia's actually, like, what? She was, like, 21 or 22. And being, like, she looked like she just belonged with these kids and was having a good time with them.
And I really enjoyed like having a different relationship with each of them, and each of them kind of felt like a sibling. I loved working with the kids on the show. It did have its challenges because kids, that's just natural.
Kara started doing this for the kids, Focus Fox.
You know, she would be like, okay guys, she did the Focus Fox. I don't know if you remember that, she did Focus Fox.
I loved working with everyone. I love like little children, so taking care of them, helping them out, and actually like being able to be in a play with them was really fun. Making friends with Cass, that's a pretty unbreakable bond.
That was a lot of fun because, you know, I'm the oldest in my family, so like, I don't know, they really seemed like siblings towards the end.
My name is Scott Finch. I teach music here at Covenant College, and I was asked to work and coach the little people, especially for Sound of Music, to teach them their parts and to arrange the parts in a way that would help them succeed.
Let's do that, just that much, Murray, and then we're going to give it a little bit of style. Good work. So you almost have this whole song memorized, yeah? And then you'll get to do dances and choreography with it.
Just getting the kids to experience being embodied, get them to move around, tell different stories so that it humanizes the whole process, asking from them, what's your favorite kind of toast or something like that, so that they get used to each other and that this is a real relational enterprise. I did get to wear my overalls every time I coached the kids, which was fun for me. I don't get to teach them those very often.
Ready, Gretel? You gotta stand on up. Can you stand up? Here we go. 1, 2, ready, and go.
Well, I love Doe deer, female deer. I like that whole thing. Doe, me, so, re, fa, fa, la, di, di.
I very much enjoyed the scene where the children all file in, they all come marching in, and I get to meet them.
This nanny comes and she changes everything and she helps her and her siblings sing. They're getting babysitted and they have like way more fun than they used to have.
My favorite line to say was when she first met Maria and she was trying to trick her into doing something wrong, and she said, you don't know how to be a governess? No. Well, the first thing you have to do is to tell father to mind his own business. That was a really fun line to say.
Kids are so adaptable, and they just, they go from, you know, treating me like they probably are expecting the previous people who have taken care of them to treat them. And then as the scene goes on, they just kind of open up, they start to establish some trust, and it's wonderful development throughout that scene.
Fun traditions and other things. One of with warming up with the kids, we'd always play like Zip Zap Zop. That would always be fun.
Oh, they liked to play those warm-up games.
They just loved the chances to just goof off, run around. Sometimes I literally was just like, okay guys, let's just run back and forth. Let's get some energy out and like try to focus. So they would just like literally just run back and forth. Like, so yeah, just moments like that were a lot of fun and gave them a nice break.
Just to have all those little kids playing with the older kids and how they, you know, really wanted to bring them in and incorporate them and make them feel part of the cast, and that was just, I felt that was really special. I have a few videos of that I'm glad I got, because it was just feeling like you're part of something bigger, and I just enjoyed that a lot.
No, I'm fairly indifferent toward it. I don't hate it, but like, take it or leave it. You know, I don't have a vendetta against it or anything. But
I don't like that game. The one theater kid who doesn't like that game. I also really liked 16 going on 17 because I liked the playfulness between Rolf and Liesl.
Wait, oh, I'm like this, aren't I?
Yes.
Oh. That's
also, I'm like way over here. It looks like I hate
tiny
you,
bench.
so I need to actually scoot closer
Well,
so it doesn't look like
yeah.
my character hates you. I really liked the when she goes timid and shy and scared am I. I don't know. I liked that part because it was really cute because she's like peeking up behind him. We both step.
Oh,
dun,
you're right.
Dun, 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 and then I don't know what to do. Dun, dun.
No, then you start singing.
No, I think I just do this. I think we do this.
This is definitely not right.
Like the change between like
oh, we're just teasing each other, to like, we're teasing each other, but there's also like a little bit of a spark going on.
And then it's over, break, up, barrel.
No, we do,
out.
because I remember every single time I would.
You're
just,
always
I would
on
be
this side
exhausted.
when we
I would
barrel.
be exhausted.
Yeah, and you can't breathe.
I think also Liesl kind of grows as a woman because of Rolf in her life, and you know, Rolf is like this romantic interest, and she's like, oh wow, he's so wonderful, and then as the second act approaches, you realize that he's not, you know, he's no good.
Right? And then you're out. And then it's this, which we'll jump forward. Countless times where I said I was 16 and she said she was 17. I don't know if everyone else caught it, but the amount of times that we looked at each other and we were like, we did it again, but it's fine. One of the things that kind of went under the radar a little bit was all of the choreographed stuff, all that work. We showed up and we were told, hey, this is what we're doing. That was, I mean, that's a lot of work, and that's a lot of, that's stuff that we couldn't do.
And then we end.
No, because I would end on this side.
Oh, okay.
So something happens between here and when we end.
I'm just gonna do this.
Yeah, I think it's just like that. And then we're in.
Like that.
Yeah.
Dude, we nailed it.
First try.
So Liesl and Rolf would have their dancing scene in the garden, and then Liesl would sneak into Maria's bedroom, and Maria would ask, like, were you alone, you know? And it was just really funny because the actor who played Rolf would be like in the audience, and it was just really funny.
And I think she starts to realize that Maria is really good for her family, and she needs to not like push back so much on Maria and just accept Maria in her life. And she kind of sees Maria as like a best friend.
The storm scene is always fun, seeing the kids run in and be all verklempt.
Well, I liked the Lonely Goat Herd scene because we were all scared of the thunder.
I could never remember like the thunder cue during the Lonely Goat Herd scene. I could never remember it, so a couple times I had run out on stage at the wrong time.
When there was a big thunderstorm and we came running in, and so I'm like, well, it wasn't my idea to come in.
When they're all gathering together, and it's kind of like the first real bonding moment we get to see with the kids and Maria.
The most fun piece was Lonely Goat Herd because it's really dance-like piece. So both orchestra and me really enjoyed to play that number.
We hadn't even finished setting that number yet, so it was hilarious to me how many times people were like, that's my favorite number. And I was like, that's the one that's a hot mess.
Jack, who played Max, was always just a joy to watch.
And he was the comedic character, so I liked watching Max.
Max is just one of those interesting characters where he does and says everything.
I also really enjoyed the opening number for Max, Elsa, and the captain. That was my favorite musical number to rehearse.
I think my favorite thing to rehearse was my very first scene. Ian and I got really close, so we were able to really run those lines and get to know each other just as people, but then also work on our characters and kind of develop their relationship a little bit more into, okay, they're not as close as the captain and Maria, but he did propose, so how close are they?
Smile, honey, you're happy.
But I'm not that happy.
My favorite line to say was, we were talking about my recently deceased husband's estate, and he was saying, isn't that a corporation now? And I said, it is, and I'm president. So that was fun, just getting to say, like, I'm president, so a girl can dream.
I always had the most fun in the scenes with Max. That's just how our characters sort of were. We'd go back and forth. Me and Elsa are sitting at the table, and Max is like wandering off talking about the choir, or no, like the Abbey, and I have some like witty line in that. I can't remember what it is again. Yeah, but whatever that line is, you can like edit it in right here.
I really liked the scene where we came in and like went through all the seats that people would be sitting in, and me and Louisa were racing And then I started telling the captain all about my teeth, and he just yelled at us to get in line.
And he said, get in a straight line. And during the rehearsal, we didn't get quite in a straight line. He said, I said straight, and we all just started laughing.
Maria Caroline was criticizing or judging Captain Von Trapp or Ian, especially, you know, when they come back from, they're all wearing, you know, drapes and stuff, and she just goes to town. She is savage towards Captain Von Trapp. Caroline's such a sweet person, and when she was mad in the show, she was mad, and it was really fun to watch.
With Maria, it was kind of fun getting angry. When she starts talking to me about my kids, she sort of shows me like the delightfulness of having the kids, and that begins to open up my character more and more as he begins to actually enjoy being with the kids, and he starts developing like relationships with them that are more meaningful and more deep and personal.
That moment when he hears the kids sing and then he starts to sing with them, it's just this rediscovery of innocence and simplicity and love that I think lacks in a lot of people, or something that we forget as we grow up.
He's had a change of heart, and he starts to sing, and the children can't believe that their father is singing, and then they all go hug him. I loved that. I loved watching that, and I was on stage, so I had to stay in the moment and stay, you know, Maria watching that, but I did really enjoy that.
My favorite costume was the curtain costume.
To me, they almost looked better than like the movie. They're just a little bit more creative.
Sewing the curtain clothes was an absolute blast. It was so cool to like get this boxes and boxes of fabrics. We needed something upwards of 30 yards of it, and so there was just so much.
You had to make sure that you were getting things small enough and yet also big enough for growing kids.
That was really a group effort where everyone in the shop was working on different elements of those. We had skirts and dresses and blouses and shorts and everything.
It was fun to work on kids' clothing and then watch them walk around on stage wearing what I had made. It's something that I greatly enjoy.
Usually the way that Courtney and I work together is we kind of talk about like characters, like we start with the characteristics of the characters that we're costuming.
And then gathering visual research, researching the era, researching the costume or the clothing. So my seamstresses were Maggie, Caroline, Catherine, Kara, Maria. So I had 5 working with me. And then Caroline was really good at making sure all the alterations happened smoothly and efficiently. And then she also worked on the sailor clothes, which, Lord help her for making those pleats and those skirts, because they're not fun.
I got to help with several of the kids' sailor outfits, and those were very fun to make.
It got a little confusing sometimes because you have to make 7 identical blouses.
During this production, we made a lot of things from scratch. For instance, I got to make the boys' uniforms, which was really fun.
It was an interesting pattern, and we made so many of them that just we could work on those and be talking with each other. It just became sort of muscle memory.
We never got to see all of these costumes that we put together really come to life and see what it would look like with everyone.
Favorite costume was the one that Courtney had made, the blue dress with like white sleeves, and I mean it was wonderful, and Courtney had made it all from scratch herself.
This is Maria's dress for when she's with the kids and the curtain close. There are pins in here holding the apron up. And I made this, I found this at Hobby Lobby, and I think I was originally gonna have a different material, and I just randomly went into Hobby Lobby one day and I saw this and I was like, nope, that's what we're using, this is it. And it's just one of my favorites, and it turns into her dress for the party.
I feel like the party scene in many ways is where Captain Von Trapp is starting to warm up to music a bit more, and to warm up to Maria and to the children, and just starting to melt a little and be an actual human again.
I really enjoyed rehearsing the party scene just because it was fun to work with more than just the nuns. It was fun to work with a couple more of the principal roles.
That's the scene where there are probably the most people on stage at one time. So it was really fun to sort of to act and then just be around a lot of my friends all the time. And enjoy each other's presence. And
All right, Elsa, tell me about your dress. Tell me about your costume.
So this dress is from our wonderful costume designer, Courtney. She actually wore it, so I was very honored to get to wear it. The jewelry is being repurposed right now. I'm also going to use it in Everyman. So the coat I got from Goodwill.
I am the Baroness Elberfeld, which is why I have this lovely tiara, because we are me and my husband here, the Baron Elberfeld, we're very old, we're very rich, and we're a little bit older.
Not German.
Oh yes, very not German. We are, what are we?
We are
husband?
Austrian.
We are Austrian. There you go. We are Austrian.
I really loved the part where we had Jackson and Alex and Kara and Emily in the middle of the party would come out and have this big argument about Nazi Germany. And like, it was always my favorite part, because like I could always know when it was coming, because one of them would yell and like run to the front of the stage, and it caught my attention every single night. And I just loved to watch the men fighting out loud, but then also seeing Emily and Kara's eye contact of fighting internally with each other. And it was just something I enjoyed watching.
Oh, definitely the dancing scene. That was so fun, especially like where everyone had their own distinct spins. That was just so fun. It was like we were all counting, and then they're like, your turn. And it was like so exciting when I got to do my spin. So that was my favorite.
And tell me about your costume.
Yes, so this costume actually used to be my grandmother's dress.
Kara tackled Amy Sue's dress for the party. It was in this hot pink color and that didn't quite match the rest of the costume and the color plot. So we tried to dye it, and that didn't go very well.
And so Courtney ordered a whole bunch of this beautiful navy colored chiffon and handed me the dress and handed me the fabric and said, go. So I cut off all the bright pink chiffon and used it as a pattern and cut out the blue instead, and basically reassembled the dress but with the blue. And
So I have all these memories of playing around in this dress as a kid, so it's been really fun to dance in it.
That's so fun. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
You're welcome.
It's better than some plastic glasses.
That's not how you hold a glass.
John!
Best part of the show?
Oh, I don't remember what
Oh, I liked when the
Right, there's, like, a lot of
choir was
things.
on the balcony
And
singing,
so
and it like
we had this
filled the
whole
whole
thing.
chapel.
Lonely Goatherd.
I like the nuns, when the nun singing parts. Those are like my favorite. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Oh, I actually really like the morning scene, and like when we were singing the wedding scene specifically, because like we had all these different parts and it was so like, beautiful.
Also, the part of the morning hymn where a bunch of the nuns come in late and they get fussed
Oh,
at.
yeah. The late
A
nun.
bop, yes. So that's kind of a mood.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
Mm-hmm. Smile! Look over here also.
And this is the tricky part. Okay. The tricky part is where you reach behind.
So. Bum.
Oh, you remember that one?
Yeah, I know. See, claps are easy. And then, I spin out.
And I spin in.
Da, 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 da. This is where I don't remember anything.
I loved watching Captain Von Trapp and Maria do that dance. I don't remember what it was called. What was it called? It has to start with an L.
The most difficult was probably the lanyards, I think, or what.
What, I don't even remember the name of it, but that dance that they did at the party. Yeah, the Lendler.
Mia, who played Liesl, wanted to do some choreography, but felt like taking on the role of Liesl and all the choreography would be a little much. So she did the Lendler and the other like ballroom dances for the party scene.
Opposite feet.
Oh, and this is where it ends. And then out. In.
Oh!
out, in, boom, boom.
We did it!
And the captain doesn't really love Frau Schrader as much as he thinks he does. Maria is in love with the captain, but she doesn't know it. But Brigitte knows she's in love with the captain before Maria even knows that. And like, she kind of knows everything.
So Long Farewell. We did that one so many times to help them get the timing down of like the machine movements. The theater and me loved getting to like, no, okay, try this, let's try to sharpen it up here. So that one, honestly, I love doing that one though with them because it was just so much fun.
And for Maria, in the course of the show, like she's set on this one course, and then the falling in love is unexpected, and then the person she's in love with is engaged to someone else.
So she runs away.
So we have another meeting trying to figure out what to do with Maria and how to guide her through this very interesting development with a couple more songs.
Mother Abbess, Climb Every Mountain, phenomenal. Just, she has an amazing voice, and I just think that that's such an iconic song and number of the show, so I loved watching that.
I remember after her auditions, hearing her was walking through and singing, and I was amazed by her voice.
The mother nun sings, and that was very sweet and that was very beautiful, and hearing that for the first time made me excited about the production. And I was kind of like what's it gonna be like? Like, we're all college students. Is she gonna be like, I'm working in a quartet with like 3 other college students? They're totally lame. But not at all. She was just so sweet.
The drive and the focus of the alumni really made it a different show, and I think she brought a maturity to it. Having somebody in that position or in that role of her age just really helped kind of bring some authenticity to the whole thing.
Anytime Maria was singing or anytime the head nun was singing, those were the best scenes to watch just because they both have really incredible voices, and being able to feel their voices, it was kind of just impressive.
I don't know, I kind of like the scene where we were like playing with Uncle Max. That was a fun scene.
I also really enjoyed getting to play Blind Man's Bluff with the kids at the beginning of the second act.
It was always especially fun because Jack was never actually wearing the blindfold, so seeing him pretend to wear the blindfold was really funny. And then like one time Tahiri told him to do something, and he's like, I'm gonna be blindfolded this whole time, right? And Tahiri's like, oh, yeah.
When Uncle Max is both playing Blind Man's Buff, or whatever it was, and the singing of the chords immediately afterwards, it always sounded good, but he always said it was bad. Contradiction and hypocrites and hypocrisy.
I always liked the captain's line about, I'm very happy, or something like that. I'm very happy. He's telling the kids that he's engaged. We're very happy, something like that, when he's obviously not.
And I also loved the scene where Maria comes back and all the children go running. It was almost like they didn't have to act. running back to her because she's such a lovable person. The kids get really enthusiastic about seeing Maria again.
When Maria came back from the Abbey, and then we all like ran around the stage and stuff.
I remember the thing that I had to do the least as a director was get the kids to trust and enjoy being with Caroline. Just the flood of love and energy that would wash towards the back of the stage where Caroline was coming in was just an incredible thing every night.
No Way to Stop It is like my favorite song in the whole show. I feel like in the movie they tend to water down Max and Elsa a little bit, give them the benefit of the doubt, but I do like how No Way to Stop It paints them more as the villains who are like really just looking out for themselves and not many other people.
Where like the captain and Frau Schrader and Max are singing this song about like there's no way to stop it, where they're like saying, where they're trying to convince him to join the army. Just the song is so catchy.
What's his name? No Way to Stop It. No Way to Stop It. That scene was always just really fun. I was like right in my vocal range, so I didn't have to worry about that, and I could just have fun with it.
In the film, it was more of both characters were more passive towards the issue, but then in the musical, we took more of a part in it and tried to convince Georg that like it wasn't as bad as it seemed, and it's just politics, like it's not anything serious, and like you don't actually have to like them, you just kind of have to do what they say until they go away, and just kind of showing like how blind people were at that time.
They're just not exactly sure what to do in the situation, and they're Austrian citizens, so it just seems like the natural thing to do.
I think the role of politics in Elsa and the captain's breakup, it really struck me because, I mean, we kind of see a lot of tension with politics here today, especially this year, that Elsa didn't really want to do anything about what was going on at the time, and the captain wanted to be more vocal about it.
They were engaged for a little while, but eventually she realized that he was going to be happier with somebody else, and she didn't want to stand in the way of that. And so I think she was really strong for doing that, honestly.
And then Maria comes on, and you know, it's like a changing of the seasons almost, and just changes everything up.
I magically fall in love with Maria, and that happens over the space of what feels like only a couple scenes, but it's a play, so what can you do?
I like Ordinary Couple. Like, it's just a really tender moment and really sweet that's like, oh, there's hope for them.
The love duet that Maria and the captain sing, I think it captures their desire and their vision for the future and what they want for their family.
And they like each other.
And then I'm there for the wedding. That happens shortly after that, after I send her back yet again. They get married and I give my blessing, and we go through all of that song and dance. Just that little interchange between the nuns when they're packing her suitcase.
And I'm going to hand her her mirror, I think it was. I love saying the line and kind of reacting to her lingerie and like, Sister Margareta, what is this going on?
And I said something along the lines of like, oh, it looks like they forgot to put in the linings.
I have to bring her back to Sister Margareta, the mirror.
And that just cracked me up every time.
My favorite part to watch from our stage was the wedding, because we all kind of came in from the wings and were singing, but then we got to watch them up on stage, and I really enjoyed seeing Caroline in the wedding dress. It was very dramatic and kind of emotional. So
for Maria's wedding dress, we got a lovely wedding dress from CCS, and it was beautiful and it fit relatively well. We had to add a panel in the back, and so we added this panel and we added hand-stitched lacing, and
I got to make some silken sleeves for it. Those sleeves didn't end up working.
After finding one that maybe would have worked, but she wanted to strive for something that was more fitted to the show. And
so I just decided to heck with it. I'm just gonna drape my own pattern, which I had never done before. So that was interesting and fun. So I kind of just learned on the fly on how to drape my own pattern, and it's actually an easier process than you would think. So I did that, and then I made the wedding dress all from scratch.
Daughters of mine, could someone put this over there so that I don't ruin the dress?
Well, they're not your daughters yet.
Not yet.
That's the reason you're wearing this dress.
During Maria's wedding scene, we sing this one word, Gaudeamus, and it's all like in unison, but it's so many different parts, and it's really, really hard to find the pitch, and it was just me and one other girl who had that particular part, and so we would stand next to each other and kind of like try and like hear each other. It was really tricky.
Basically, anytime all of the nuns sang, they would sit around the chapel in the auditorium and just sing, and it was the closest to heaven I think I'll ever get on earth, because it was just so many beautiful voices.
Harmonizing was beautiful, and it was especially in the chapel, you could picture the show coming to life in the space and the music filling the space.
One of the things I just really remember was how excited Casey was to build those kneelers.
Most of my professional background is in furniture design and manufacturing, so that was an exciting kind of crossover of jobs, I suppose. But I also like making sacred objects, and even if it is a prop of a sacred object, it feels nice. The kneeler has to kind of fit the proportions of the person kneeling on it in a way that's like comfy enough for them to act well. I don't know. That was something fun to think about it.
The thing that I was most proud of on the set was the kneelers. And we kind of shaded them a little bit to give them like a little more of a depth to it with the paint. I was doing it with the paintbrush, but I was getting a little frustrated. I was like, that's it. And I just stuck my hands in the paint and started like mixing it together and just slapping it on with my fingers. And that was lots of fun, and I think they turned out really good.
I loved all of Brigida's little zingers with Max and thought that they both did a really good job with that.
My favorite scene was the one where I am introducing the Von Trapp children to the pamphlets with all their names written in the program. And then Ian, as Captain Von Trapp, walks in, and I have to suddenly hide all of the evidence and play it off like it's no big deal.
My favorite line that I said might be like whenever the Nazis are in and Uncle Max is trying to kind of act like he's with Hitler, and they're like, why aren't you flying the flag? And I'm like, oh, the flag with the black spider on it? And he's like, Brigida, be quiet. Or whenever he's like, do you trust me? And I said, no.
I'm not sure why, but I really love the scene with Maria when she's talking about growing up. I know it's a very simple scene, but I like that scene when Maria's telling Liesl, this is what love is. This is what it's going to be like. Don't rush into anything.
What he's seeing is, the rise of Germany and of the Nazis, and comes back into the story and sees, Liesl and her whole family not following that. The story becomes a question of, is it better to stay safe and go with what the majority is saying versus fighting for what you believe in and what is right. My favorite line to say was, yes, Franz, or yes, Franz, or yes, even Franz, even me, even everyone in Nürnberg, except for the great Captain Von Trapp, which was a really hard line to get right. And I'm sure you remember, we worked on this so much, and I worked on it by myself, and I worked on it, every single time one of my roommates walked in, I would yell at my roommates that line.
And then a bunch of bad Nazis come, and they're like, oh, we're gonna take your dad, and he's gonna have to be our warrior person.
From my perspective as the admiral, I sort of get to try to recruit Captain Von Trapp into the military to serve under me, and I'm sort of baffled and confused why he would prefer Austria to Germany.
And then it ends up with the concert and with us having to run away because otherwise I have to take a Navy position.
One of the more beautiful songs, of course, is Edelweiss.
Edelweiss and learning the guitar plus the singing, how to do that.
Thought he did just a really nice job making it a part of the captain's character arc and also just beautifully expressing the simpleness and elegance of the lyrics and tune.
One of my favorite parts to watch from off stage is the concert. And it was actually the other characters that won some of the awards at the concert, just the ensemble. They were just really cute and really funny when they would come on stage, just so excited that they had won.
My favorite costume was the idea that Courtney was coming up with for the trio costumes.
I was so sad when I thought about the fact that I might not be able to wear this, but here I am.
I enjoy Max as a human character who he acts nobly, but he's not necessarily the hero. But upon reflection, he does decide to do something a little bit out of character for him, and he goes against his own philosophy of self-preservation to give the Von Trapp family an opportunity to escape.
And then I show up again at the very end after they've gone through some other hardships, and the Nazis are on their way and they're hiding, so I give them sanctuary.
The Mother Abbess one.
Did you like watching that one?
Mhm.
What did you like about it?
I like that we all ran away and we all hid in that one.
One of my favorite things is at the very end, when he sees Liesl and he puts down the gun and he's like, nobody's here. Because even though Liesl didn't say anything, it's there, and it was a potent action. It was definitely a action to respond to, and so that was probably one of my favorite, because we both ended up leaving that scene, practice, rehearsal, feeling really emotional about it every single time, and that's my favorite part of theater, is when you actually feel the story.
And I send them off once again over the mountains and the hills with my blessing, and I guess that's my role, sending her away.
My favorite line to say was probably, "We can do without help, Father," in the very last scene of the play.
At first, I always thought it was some sort of romantic comedy type story about a father and the nanny. But then once we really started to play with these themes and seeing how the Nazis played into this whole story and how important it was that it was set in Austria during the beginning of World War II, that aspect of it became so much more real to the story, and seeing how music is one of the best ways of coping with and understanding difficult times.
So whenever we first got the Sound of Music, sheet music handed to us, it looked deceptively easy sometimes. When we would play an orchestra, there would always be spots where we weren't together, or like intonation was kind of off, or rhythm was weird. So I'd always make a mental note of, oh, this page, and sometimes I would write it down on a piece of paper, like this page from this place to this place, and then really work on those.
The
the numbers that we already know, like a do, re, mi, so, that we thought that was the easiest one. But after we look at that, there's so many key changes going on, and then the instrumentation is so big. So it was the most difficult number for us.
I never played in a pit before, although I had been to performances where there was a live orchestra in the pit, and I always kind of like watched their lights and kind of paid attention to them more than I think other people would.
Growing up, I never knew of The Sound of Music, had no idea. So I was also like coming into it and playing it and like having no idea what the storyline was. So I was waiting for the day when we would like rehearse, do the dress rehearsals and do the show, and like, oh, that's what we're telling with this story. Probably not a great idea for how you express or communicate music, but I wanted to save myself a treat.
I would want to give a shout out to Professor Kim with the orchestra. Just he was so motivated, and he kept the rest of us motivated to just do our best with the songs, and he was very patient with us, but also kept us moving along at the right pace that we needed to, so that we could get to work with the singers.
So without singers, actually we have some trouble to get some the musical idea. So orchestra was a kind of doubt of what was going on here when I played this part or that part. But finally, when we are able to have singers and the orchestra, oh yeah, this is what it is.
And I knew that I really wanted to have my music down as best as possible, because there were so many people in the orchestra working so hard to get the music right that I didn't want to show up to rehearsal not being ready.
Professor Kim just does such a good job, and I remember when we had like one of our practices with them, just like, it's always fun to see. You forget that like there are other people working while you're doing your own thing, because you don't come together until the very end of the process.
I think we were at a spot where we were definitely ready with most of it, but we felt confident. There were just little parts that we needed to nail down, but I'm sure with the dress rehearsal and having everyone together, it was going to come all together.
Well, for most part, musicians, they have to deal with just by themselves. They just stick in the practice room and they play their own part. And even for the recital, they just play by themselves. Maybe like a duo or trio, that's it. But serving in the orchestra and serving as an accompaniment for the musical theater is really help to understand how actually we live together and we help together as our God's children.
I was super happy to have, before COVID canceled it, I was super happy to have that one run through where we kind of did a more intense, like not quite a dress rehearsal, but a lot of the stage crew stuff and a lot of the actual acting and the whole run through. And I was so happy to get to do one of those before spring break, and it got cut off. So I'm happy we were able to do that at least.
I'm so beyond grateful for being able to be at the rehearsal that night, because for Maggie and I, that was our first exposure to what it was going to look like. I got to see who all would have been in it. I got to see what it would have looked like, and I'm very, very thankful for just that little glimpse of what everyone was working on.
I knew you guys worked a lot on like props and stuff. That like last practice, like how you guys like had laid out everything so we could like grab it easily and stuff, and that was pretty awesome.
I enjoyed the flowers that we were going to work with, but I also enjoyed like coming up with the letters and stuff for the captain and Maria to work with.
And I really appreciated her attention to those kind of details as the props mistress.
Will Payne, in all of his light knowledge and light greatness, being able to just go up on the chapel catwalk and just like casually fix the lights when nobody really knew that he was like fixing them, and then we'd come into rehearsal and they'd be ready.
Will was getting the lights and stuff together. We were renting sound equipment, and so the sound guys were all setting all that up. So everything was getting set up, and we were kind of frantically chipping away at some of the prop notes and the set pieces. So I just come back from spring break. I came back a little early. The day before they announced that they shut down, I was working on sets. Yeah, I remember that being a particularly sad thing, being like, literally the paint hasn't dried yet and we have to shut it down.
I was working away because we were a little bit behind schedule, I believe. And yeah, then we just stopped.
I was practicing piano when I found out this show was done in March, and my dad's he works from home, so his office is in there, and he told me, and it was really sad.
I was actually rehearsing at the time. I finished and then I see there's an email and everyone's talking about this email and and then I had I didn't really know what to do with that.
When my mom came in and told me that it was canceled, I was like, "Aw." But it kind of could not have come at a better time for me because I had just lost my script.
I was rehearsing Maria and was trying to work on those high C's and get my voice up there. And I just remember my sister coming downstairs and she's like, "Leslie, they're canceling college."
Yeah, I was just in my kitchen and got that email, and I burst into tears. So yeah, it was very sad. It was, had to tell Lena, that was really hard.
It was hard, especially I think for us because it was our last semester.
I was surrounded by friends and we all sort of learned and took it together, so it wasn't that difficult. And then we still had a few days of spring break together.
I called Kara and asked her is this for real? Are we not coming back? Is the show actually canceled, or what are we doing?
I don't know what the outcome is, but I need to be a voice of reason. I need to be calm about this.
So I wasn't just heartbroken for myself, I was heartbroken for the rest of the cast and the rest of the people that put time and effort into the show, so yeah.
I'm just glad I got to be a part of it for the little while that we had.
What I take away from the process of rehearsing the show and all that goes into a show is just the amount of stuff that goes into a show, that it's a big team effort.
Something I learned definitely was, again, how much I love theater and how much it brings me a lot of joy to be able to stand on a stage and perform for people.
It just struck me a lot how important it was sometimes just to do something artistic for its own sake.
Every rehearsal has significant importance. And kind of just cherish every moment, because you never know when it might, just immediately stop.
Going back, I definitely would have just basked in the moment, bask in every rehearsal. I'm like, oh, we're all here together without masks, just enjoying our time together. So yeah, definitely to just bask in the moment and enjoy what God has given you.
The show must go on, and it will, because the people, the community that we have is so dedicated to making sure people walk away with that sense of life.
See all of the actors reconnecting after so long and seeing reliving memories and living their old parts and finding some joy and some closure in this.
Just that if you work hard and just work with a group of people well, the biggest tragedies can still be fun. The whole documentary with this has been amazing, just to see the entire department come together and continue that, even though we're all disappointed that the actual performance didn't happen. Just even if you don't meet the end goal, just the journey is really cool.
When you're putting on a show, it really is for the people that it touches, and so I feel when that's taken away from you, when you're not gonna get to perform it in front of an audience, you're like, why, God, why did this happen? We were gonna touch people with this, that was the goal, was to take it and to show it to people and to bring them joy. And I know God was really kind of telling me when I was like, why did this happen? This shouldn't have happened, it shouldn't be this way, we should get to have our performance. I think he kind of showed me that we did touch people, but it was each other, and it was the experiences that we had and the music that we made together and the beauty that came out of it and the friendships that we made together. And so at the end of the day, you ask yourself, was it all worth it? Because we didn't get to perform it for an audience, but we did. It was for each other and for the beauty that we made together.
I leave and heave a sigh and say goodbye.
Shout out to Elias for all the photography work he did for production photos and the time he spent making the posters. I think they were coming along really pretty. Yeah, he spent a ton of time on them.
The parents of the kids who were always hanging out or helping out, like Lena's mom, Nikki. She was also the mother abbess, and so she was always there with them, and that's a big time commitment for her.
Also, my roommate Sabrina, I did some of the choreography, and Sabrina really helped with that. I was stumped, so also her help too.
I really enjoyed working with John Schimpf, who was my set change czar, and Hope. Hope was like a rock, and a lot of the times I felt like she and I were in it arm in arm, figuring it out.
Maddie was the accompanist, so she was at a lot of the rehearsals and towards the end was at every single rehearsal just about prepping for the show, and she was going to be playing each of the shows in the pit.
I feel bad mentioning this, but
something funny that happened was we were like rehearsing the really tense scene where we're all hiding from the Nazis.
The final scene, it's there's all the tension as Rolf enters.
I'm starting to get all emotional.
And then someone farted really loudly.
And Nathan, out of the blue.
Yeah, he just rips one.
It was really loud. Everyone was like, that wasn't good. It didn't smell very good either. But I don't remember very much about that. I do remember it being really loud.
Then for the next like 10 minutes, I can't keep a straight face.
Caroline is like beet red, trying so hard not to laugh. And yeah.
The first one I can understand. You know, the first one comes and we're all like, oh, that was funny. You know, quality.
The fact that he did it again so brazenly afterwards was very bold on his part.
If not the same pitch, it's louder. That one's gonna go down the history books for sure.